She was America's sweetheart, the radiant cowgirl with the golden voice and the smile that lit up screens for decades. Dale Evans, the iconic star of the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, built her legacy alongside her beloved husband, Roy Rogers. Together, they were the picture-perfect duo, faith-filled, family-oriented, and adored by millions. But behind the rhinestones, behind the cameras, Dale was carrying a storm no one could see. For years, she wore her fame like armor, her smile hiding a devastating truth. And just before her death, she finally shattered the illusion, revealing a painful confession that shook everything fans thought they knew. What could a woman so loved, so admired, keep hidden for so long? And why did she wait until the very end to speak it? What did she finally confess about the man millions adored? A legacy of love, loss, and unbearable choices waited in the shadows, and when Dale Evans finally spoke, it wasn't just heartbreaking, it changed everything. But what exactly did she reveal? A troubled beginning. Long before she became America's beloved Queen of the West, Dale Evans was just Frances Octavia Smith, a girl born in Uvalde, Texas, whose childhood was anything but glamorous. After her parents separated, young Frances was sent away to live with her uncle, Dr. L.D. Massey, in the quiet town of Osceola, Arkansas. Though he tried to offer her a stable life, the emotional distance from her parents and the constant upheaval left deep scars. By the time she was just 14, Frances made a decision that would alter the course of her life. She eloped with a man named Thomas Frederick Fox. And by 15, she became a mother to a baby boy, Thomas Jr. What began as a desperate grasp for love and belonging quickly turned into tragedy. Her young husband walked away, leaving her to raise a child completely alone. This was only the beginning of the storms Dale Evans would survive. Frances was just a teenager, a single mother in Memphis, Tennessee, trying to survive in a world that offered her little support and even fewer opportunities. Raising a child alone, she faced unimaginable pressure. But through it all, she fought, working part-time at local radio stations WMC and WREC, singing, playing the piano, and inching her way into the spotlight. These small performances were the fragile beginnings of what would eventually become a nationally recognized career. But behind the growing reputation was a life filled with silent chaos. Financially unstable, emotionally unsupported, and carrying the heavy stigma of teen motherhood, Frances had to keep her truth buried just to survive in the cutthroat world of entertainment. Still, she endured. Her pain didn't break her, it shaped her. And it would later inspire the deep empathy and public advocacy she became known for. But in those early days, she wasn't a star. She was a scared, determined young woman fighting for a future, and hiding a past she feared the world wouldn't forgive. When Hollywood came calling, studios made her lie about her son and say he was her younger brother. This lie would haunt her for decades. But in these early years, you can see the real Dale Evans, who was nothing like the polished Western star she was destined to become. Her fight for survival was just beginning, and it would take more than talent to change her fate. Remaking herself in radio and Hollywood as Frances Octavia Smith continued to struggle to provide for herself and her young son, she found her voice through radio. Working at radio stations like WMC and WREC in Memphis, she sang and played the piano, slowly building a small but loyal fan base. Her skill for jazz, swing, and big band music stood out, catching the attention of people in the business. Despite her humble beginnings, Frances was determined to make it in music, and she quickly rose through the ranks of radio entertainment in the 1930s. It was a turning point when she got a job at WHS in Louisville, Kentucky, where the station manager said she was too plain and his suggestion was to give her a more memorable stage name, Dale Evans. Frances agreed, thinking that a new name might open new doors. It did. Dale Evans quickly became her professional persona, giving her a fresh start in a world that valued image as much as talent. Hollywood took notice right away, and Dale's singing skills earned her a screen test and a contract with 20th Century Fox. Her public image was shaped to fit that wholesome all-American status, but the studio insisted that she Dale agreed to have her teenage son Tommy pass for her younger brother, which was a rude and painful choice that hurt her feelings a lot. The lie was meant to protect her career, but it ended up doing a lot of emotional damage to her. Dale would later say that the lie haunted her, especially as she became more famous, and that it showed how strict rules were for women in early Hollywood. She lived double lives because of her fame, knowing that part of her life was a lie. Despite this, she went on to become a successful singer and actress, an icon of strength and bravery. Changing her name from Frances Smith to Dale Evans showed her determination to survive in a cruel business. This time in her life set the foundations for the strong, complex woman she would become. 3 marriages before Roy Rogers before Dale Evans found lasting love. With Roy Rogers, her romantic relationships were marked by heartbreak, instability, and deep emotional trials. Her first marriage, when she was only 14, was to Thomas Frederick Fox. The relationship was short-lived and very painful, and Fox left her soon after the birth of their son Thomas Jr., leaving her alone in Memphis, where she was still known as Frances, to raise her child while trying to make ends meet. This early experience of abandonment would have a huge impact on her emotional strength and how she approached future relationships. After officially divorcing Fox Dale, she got married to August Wayne Johns in 1929. Not much is known about this relationship, but it ended in 1935, leaving Dale without any children and with a lack of lasting happiness. During this time, Dale was still working hard to build her career in radio and music, and the emotional toll of another failed marriage added to the stress she was already feeling as a single mother and aspiring performer. The end of her second marriage confirmed a pattern of instability in her personal life even as her professional prospects looked bright. Slowly things got better. In 1937, Dale Butts married a musician and arranger named Robert Dale Butts, who worked closely with her on music. Their relationship was more professional than romantic. They worked well together creatively, but their personal relationship lacked the passion and desire for compatibility that are necessary for a long-term relationship. By 1946, they were divorced, ending Dale's third attempt at a longer marriage. Despite this, the marriage to Butts did help her music career, rather than making her sad, opening up new opportunities in the entertainment business, which led to even bigger changes in her art style. Early marriages were more than just a bunch of broken ones, they were also how Dale learned to balance his calm side with his drive to succeed. Each of the broken relationships left scars, but they also helped her become the strong, independent woman she would become. The pain of those early relationships was made worse by the social stigma of being a single mother and the loneliness that came with being left alone. Women gave her no choice but to get married. But it wasn't until she was hurt by those things that she met Roy Rogers, a business partner who would eventually be as strong as she was in life and work. Hollywood's pressure. As Dale Evans's career took off in the 1930s and 1940s, Hollywood gave her the fame and platform she had long dreamed of, but it came at a heavy personal cost. After signing a contract with 20th Century Fox, she was thrown into the studio system, which was very strict. Controlled how its stars were seen by the public. For Dale, a single mother who the studios didn't like her real life because it went against the wholesome all-American girl image they were trying to create for her. To protect her rising stardom, they decided that her teenage son Tommy would be presented to the public as her younger brother. This wasn't just a one-time lie, Dale had to keep it up during the most public years of her early career. In interviews, studio press releases, and interactions with fans, she had to talk about her son as a sibling. The emotional weight of this lie was huge. Dale later admitted that she was haunted by this lie not only because it was dishonest, but also because it kept her from being seen with the child she loved most. It took away her right to fully own her identity as a mother, which was something she had fought for since she was a teenager. The emotional weight got even heavier over the years as Tommy saw his parents in public refer to him as her brother. Both Dale and Tommy knew that the act was necessary for work, but it was hard on them personally. Behind the smiles and sequined cowgirl outfits, Dale felt guilty about hiding the truth. The act was a metaphor for the sacrifices women in early Hollywood were expected to make, especially if their real lives didn't match the glamorized images the studios wanted to sell. It wasn't until she married Roy Rogers in 1947 that Dale was finally ready to tell the truth, with Roy's permission. She told everyone that Tommy was really her son and not her brother. This was both a relief and a sorrowful realization. It was relief that the secret was no longer a secret, and it was sorrow that the truth was finally out. Coming clean helped Dale regain a piece of herself, but it also brought up all the years of emotional suppression and the aching pains of motherhood. This was the moment that marked a turning point in her life and career in favor of truth, but she would always be marked with the scars of having hid such an important truth. The Roy Rogers union, Dale Evans's fourth and final marriage to Roy Rogers, was the most important and long-lasting event in her personal and professional life. They met on the set of the 1944 movie Cowboy and the Señorita, and their on-screen chemistry quickly turned into real-life love. After working together for a year in several westerns, they got married on New Year's Eve 1947 at the Flying L Ranch in Davis, Oklahoma. Both of them had already been through failed marriages before this one. Roy Rogers was Dale's third husband and Dale's fourth, but the two had a relationship that went beyond Hollywood's usual romantic standards. They were partners in both work and life, and America loved them as a cowboy couple. From 1951 to 1957, they co-starred in The Roy Rogers Show, which became a classic of early TV. Dale, riding her buckskin horse Buttermilk, complimented Roy's bravery with grace, compassion, and a strong sense of right and wrong. Their performances were more than just entertainment, they consistently promoted messages of family, faith, and virtue. Dale's influence on the show went beyond her role as sidekick. She often brought up spiritual issues and encouraged viewers to hold on to hope and faith during hard times. Their marriage had its ups and downs. In 1950, they had their first child together, Robin Elizabeth. Sadly, Robin, who was born with Down syndrome, died before she turned 2. Dale turned her sadness into a calling by writing Angel Unaware and working to raise awareness and compassion for children with developmental disabilities. Together with Roy, Dale adopted 4 children. They had other children, Mimi, Dodie, Andy, and Debbie, making a big blended family. Even though they had busy careers, they took being parents very seriously and shared values that made for a stable and faith-based home environment. Fans always praised the story, but it did have some rough spots. In her later years, Dale talked about how hard it was to be married to a man who was as dedicated to his job as Roy. She talked about how Roy's frequent absences and harsh behavior hurt their relationship. But she always talked about him and their marriage with love. They were married for more than 50 years until Roy died in 1998, and Dale stayed with him until the end. They were a powerful couple in the West, and their legacy lives on in film and TV history as well as in the lives they touched through their advocacy music and enduring message of faith and family. Just when life seemed full of promise, Robin's death and Dale's mission in 1950 brought more heartbreak. Robin Elizabeth Rogers was their first biological child. What should have been a happy event in their marriage quickly turned into one of the worst times of their lives. Robin was born with Down syndrome, which was a very socially taboo condition in the 1950s. Doctors even told Dale and Roy that they should put Robin in an institution, but they refused. Instead, they chose to love and care for Robin at home, welcoming her as a valued member of their growing family. This decision, which was unusual for the time, showed how much they believed in their Christian beliefs and family-centered life. Tragically, Robin's life was cut short before her second birthday because of complications from her condition. Dale was devastated. The death of her daughter was a turning point in her emotions that sent her into a season of grief unlike anything she had ever felt before. But even in her grief, Dale found purpose. She began to see Robin's short life as a divine assignment, a way to change how the world saw children with developmental disabilities instead of withdrawing into herself. Dale's sadness turned her own pain into a strong advocacy mission. Dale wrote and released the very sad book Angel Unaware as. Thought of from Robin's point of view in heaven. The book wasn't just a. The book was not only a memorial, but also a spiritual and emotional case for treating children with special needs like other kids. It became a bestseller and helped change public attitudes at a time when talking about developmental disabilities was frowned upon or ignored. Dale used the book's success to gain more fame and speak out for compassionate care, inclusion, and dignity for all children, no matter what their abilities were. Her voice gave strength to thousands of families who were going through hard times. When similar things happened, Dale's activism had a big impact. Her work helped start and continue to support organizations for people with disabilities. For example, the Oklahoma County Council for Mentally Children was renamed the Dale Rogers Training Center to honor her lifelong work to improve people's lives through education and community support. From grief, Dale found grace, and she made that grace her cause for all her days. By telling Robin's story, she broke the silence around disability and showed that even short lives can have a huge effect. Faith and fame. As Dale Evans grew up personally and professionally, her strong Christian faith became an important part of who she was. After the deaths of her daughters Robin and Debbie, Dale's beliefs became not only a source of comfort but also a guiding force in her life and work. Instead of separating her spirituality from her fame, she chose to make her faith a part of her public life. Dale Evans shared messages of hope, redemption, and trust in God's plan through her music books, TV shows, and public appearances. Her fans knew her not only as a talented performer, but also as a woman with strong beliefs and a lot of compassion. Of course, their faith is most visible on the Roy Rogers and Dale Evans Show, a Western variety show from the 1960s that often had moralizing and spiritual themes. Evans wasn't afraid to talk about her Christian beliefs on the show, which was a common thing for mainstream entertainers at the time. During her performances, Dale sang gospel songs and ended with moving messages about God, family, and the power to overcome. She was a role model in Hollywood because her faith and fame never made her compromise her values, even in a place where open religious expression is often frowned upon. Because of her beliefs, Dale became politically active. In 1964, during a national controversy about school prayer, she made a bold public statement. The Supreme Court ruled that required prayer in public schools was unconstitutional. Dale spoke at the Project Prayer rally in Los Angeles' Shrine Auditorium in support of religious freedom and incorporating Christian teachings into education. In front of 2,500 people, she urged Americans to stand up and be counted in defense of their faith. Later, Dale backed conservative presidential candidate Barry Goldwater, whose platform matched her beliefs on faith, family, and traditional American life. Dale continued to write and record religious songs and inspirational books in her later years, serving as a spiritual guide for many of her fans. Her songs, which mostly dealt with overcoming grief and holding on to faith in the face of hardship, would connect with people outside of the Western genre. For Dale, fame was just a means to an end, to spread a message of love, faith, and moral clarity. Even as the entertainment industry changed around her, she stayed a stable voice rooted in belief, using her fame not. When Dale Evans and Roy Rogers' 12-year-old adopted daughter Debbie was killed in a terrible church bus accident in 1964, it was another terrible loss that would leave a deep mark on their family. The accident happened during what was supposed to be a happy church outing, a safe, faith-based event that showed the values that Dale and Roy worked so hard to teach their children. The bus lost control and crashed, killing Debbie and leaving Dale and Roy shattered. The couple had already been through the unbearable loss of their daughter Robin 10 years before Debbie's death. Debbie's death was especially hard for Dale because she had welcomed the child into their family with unconditional love, hoping to give the child a stable and loving home. The sudden and tragic nature of the accident haunted Dale. She often described it as one of the darkest times of her life, showing in later reflections that she was filled with guilt and sorrow. Questioned whether she could have done anything to stop the tragedy. The pain of burying yet another child added to the emotional toll that years of public life, family problems, and personal loss had already taken on her. After Debbie's death, Dale and Roy made what they called a life-changing decision. They sold their favorite ranch spread, which was 300 acres and had many happy and sad memories attached to it. They moved to Apple Valley at Double Arbar Ranch to start a new life. Even though they were away from the painful memories of their loss, Dale found herself stuck in Debbie's ghosts and death. She put all of her energy into her work and continued to talk and write openly about grief, faith, and the hard road to healing. Dale's tone became harsher and more painfully raw, coming from a woman who has lived through pain and is still trying to figure out what it all means. This belief made Dale's spiritual strength even stronger. She never said she understood the whys about such losses, but she kept insisting on God's plan. Dale stayed dedicated to her work of giving people hope through public appearances, books, and religious broadcasts, even though she was in pain. She talked about Debbie's death instead of trying to hide it behind a veneer of fame, which helped many other people going through their own grief. Debbie's untimely death was just one more chapter in Dale's larger story that showed the power of faith in the worst things that life has to offer. In honor of Debbie's memory, Dale would often say that pain was not the end of the story, it was the start of a. People who had been hurting in silence were inspired by her bravery to talk about her grief. To the outside world, Dale Evans and Roy Rogers were the perfect American couple, dedicated, religious, and getting along on and off screen for decades. They were seen as the model of marital success and starred in many movies and TV shows together. But as Dale got older, she started to paint a more nuanced and honest picture of their marriage, showing that there were problems behind the public image. While she always spoke highly of Roy, she admitted that their relationship had its emotional ups and downs. One of the biggest problems Dale had was that Roy was often away from home because of his busy career. He was filming, performing, or touring, so Dale had to take care of the house and their children, both biological and adopted, on her own. This made her feel very lonely at times, especially since she was also dealing with the expectations of her public life and her ongoing grief over the deaths of their daughters Robin and Debbie. And Dale were partners in many ways, but Debbie said there were times when she felt emotionally alone, even though they were in a famous marriage. Dale also felt the pressure of being in the public eye. To Rogers Evans, everything had to show power, love, and togetherness. This meant that their flaws, problems with disagreements, co-parenting, and emotional distance were hidden from fans and the media. Dale said that Roy could be a strict father to his kids, and she supported his need for order. They had strong morals, but it sometimes caused problems in their blended family. Their faith and commitment to each other got them through it. Dale's biggest personal regret was probably the lie she told for years that her son Tommy was her brother. Even after she told the truth in public, she said that the lie had left a scar she would never fully heal from. The emotional toll of having stored that secret compounded with the weight of a perfect marriage created lifelong internal conflict for Dale, but not as soon as did she permit the memory of her love for Roy fade. She stayed with him till his death in 1998, and her later reflections found out a woman who had suffered substantially learned first-rate lessons and in the long run located a way to embrace the lovely and damaged aspects of her very own lifestyle's tale. In a rare interview, Dale as soon as stated, "The best romances aren't perfect, they're simply real, sufficient to survive the storms." This honest mirrored image colored the carefully curated photograph that enthusiasts noticed. On screen, her willingness to share these private struggles helped to reshape public perception about celebrity marriages, demonstrating that vulnerability, especially from a person so extensively prominent, can be a quiet act of braveness. Even after all of the ache, Dale found a way to show her scars into something lasting, legacy of love and advocacy, although satisfactory, known as the glamorous cowgirl. Alongside Roy Rogers, Dale Evans's legacy extended a ways beyond the silver display. Within the years following her rise to reputation, Dale had become a prolific creator, penning more than 24 books that reflected her deep Christian faith, private struggles, and unwavering belief in wish and recovery. Titles like Angel Unaware stimulated with the aid of the lifestyles and death of her daughter Robin resonated with infinite families managing grief, incapacity, and loss. Through her writing, Dale converted her very own hardships right into a ministry of consolation, imparting vulnerable faith, primarily based guidance that touched hearts across generations. Inside the 70s and past, Dale persevered to use Her platform for faith-based outreach, she recorded more than one solo gospel albums and later released a non-secular television software that allowed her to proportion messages of encouragement and notion with a countrywide target market. Her programming emphasized compassion, perseverance, and God's grace-centered topics that reflected her private life, while trends in TV and song evolved. Dale's message remained constant and applicable to those seeking power throughout difficult times. Her voice, gentle yet company in conviction, have become a source of religious aid for those who had in no way met her. An individual. One among Dale Evans's finest legacies is her devotion to persons with developmental disabilities. After losing Robin, Dale have become a countrywide spokesperson for children with unique needs at a time whilst such issues were frequently stigmatized or ignored. Through her tireless paintings, she controlled to enlighten a number of the general public's misconceptions and alternate some of the requirements of care. The Dale Rogers Training Center in Oklahoma, named for her, exemplifies her everlasting imprint by educating, enticing, and education people with disabilities and presenting them with support offerings. Dale's tireless efforts have been, however, no longer performative. As an alternative, they have been firmly rooted in giving dignity and a voice to the maximum inclined. Dale Evans has additionally cast an extended cultural shadow, inducted into each the National Cowgirl Museum and Corridor of Reputation and the Western Performers Hall of Fame. This recognition loftily exalted her contributions to amusement with a pioneering spirit. Her duet with Roy, Happy Trails, grew up to be extra than just a closing track. It became a giver of hope and in confirmation of the couple's enduring optimism and philosophy of existence. She is felt via her own family, especially her kids, who maintain, retaining, and promoting the Rogers-Evans legacy on the stop. Dale Evans proved that genuine stardom can occur in empowering others and loving management in preference to just inside the limelight. Dales have an effect on reached past the limits of the way of life to come to be part of the communication in American society. Approximately motherhood, femininity, and the role of girls in public existence throughout a time while women celebrities were expected to keep polished, scandalous pics. Dale dared to speak approximately grief, regret, and spiritual staying power, topics that till her remained largely unexplored via ladies artists in Hollywood. Along with her candid commentaries and books, which includes Day Out for Dad and Mom and God Is My Existence, she challenged the prevailing discourse by way of giving voice to a faith-oriented woman who turned into prone yet strong. Historian Emily C. Neff summarized it well whilst she stated that Dale Evans gave ladies permission to guide with faith while confronting lifestyles as private wounds. Dale Evans's voice started shaping a newly interjected expertise of energy that accommodated tenderness, transparency, and emotional sincerity. Thank you for looking. If Dale Evans's story moved you, do not forget to love this video, leave a remark together with your thoughts, and subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories. And do not pass just yet. Click the subsequent video for your screen to discover some other powerful chapter from the golden age of the West. See you there.